Today we're making a simple wire wrapped ring. This design has one bigger bead in the centre and 3 smaller beads on each side, with the wire sweeping around that centre bead to frame it, and it's attached on each side. Today I'm using a beautiful genuine pearl for the centre bead, which is about 8mm wide, and then I'm using 4mm seed beads for the 3 beads on each side. Then our wire for this design today, we're using 10 inches of 20 gauge dead soft silver wire. So I just measure and cut that to length. Now we can pop our beads onto our wire. So I just start with the actual design, which is the 3 smaller beads first, and then your feature bead, your bigger bead in the middle, and then 3 more beads on the other side. Sometimes these seed beads vary in size, so you want to make sure they're taking up about the same amount of space on each side of the feature bead there, just so that your ring looks nice and even. I'm using a ring mandrel today for my ring, but if you don't have one, just use a whiteboard marker or some sort of pen that's about the same size as a finger. On a ring mandrel, I do size up about half a size, and I find that ends up being the perfect fit for whichever finger I was making it for. So there's my main beaded design there. So you want to make sure your beads are sitting in the center of your wire. You can measure it or just do it by eye. Then we're going to place it onto our ring mandrel or pen. Making sure those beads are right in the center of your wire, and then bringing the wire right around your mandrel. Bringing it around both ways so that one side comes on the top and one side comes on the bottom of your beads. You want to make sure those wires are not overlapped at all, and you bring those ends right past the beads as well, or at least past the center bead. Hold those beads together right in the center there, and just check there's no overlaps anywhere on your wire. Then you can give each end a nice tug with your pliers, just making sure it's all pulled nice and tight. Now we can take our little wire wrap off the mandrel, and you should start to see how this ring is going to be formed. Now we're going to bring each wire around to frame that center bead, and we want to make sure these wires are connected as we bring them around. So we start by bringing this bottom wire up around that center bead, and this wire on the top here down on the other side of the bead, and we slowly work the wires around so that they come back in the same direction that each wire came from. Once those wires have come around that center bead and back in the same direction, we're going to work our wires into position so that we can wrap them around the band on the outside of those beads. Now our wire comes down and we bend it across over the top of the band here, and this is where we're going to put our little connection here to just secure this whole ring in place. Starting on one side, when that wire's sitting next to those little seed beads there, we can just start to bring our wire around the band. I start bending from the end there, bending it around inwards and bringing it inside the ring, and just start to bend it around that band. So just make sure those little beads are sitting up near the top. And then you can gently bring this wire around the band a couple of times, making sure not to pull on it too tight. You're just kind of gently bending it and wrapping it around those band wires. And you're also making sure that you keep those band wires sitting flat and next to each other as well. You can crimp them all down nice and flat as you go. You can do 2 or 3 loops on the side here. I like to do 3, but that's just a personal preference. Once you've done your loops on the side here and you've crimped them down nice and tight, then we can lift our little tail on the inside of our ring, bring it up and cut it off really nice and short, and crimp it down tight so there's no sharp pieces. just making sure my loops are really nice and flat and tight there. Now we can swap onto the other side and do the same thing here. So you can see where this wire comes around your bead and across the band on the other side of the 3 smaller beads. And same on this side, I just bend from the end of the wire, bending around inwards, so inside the ring there. If you did 3 loops on the other side, you want to do 3 loops on this side as well, if you have enough wire. Gently bringing that wire around, making sure that those band wires stay nice and flat and sit next to each other. Once you've done your full 3 loops, you can crimp them all down nice and tight. Make sure they're sitting nice and tidy. Then you can lift that little tail up on the inside of your ring and cut it off nice and short and crimp it down nice and tight. Take some time now with your pliers and just go over your whole design. Make sure all your loops are nice and tight and those wires on the band are sitting nice and flat and together. So you should be able to check the size of your ring. Hopefully it's about where you wanted it. And there's your simple wire wrapped beaded ring.